answer to all my questions. Is there anyone else outside, Sarah?
Mark, are you actually recording this?
Be wise.
Yeah. I was just going to do like a freeze thing.
That's not good for video.
Yeah, YouTube bloopers. You guys, you ready? Okay. You're not ready. Talk amongst yourselves.
Awesome. I hope you can hear me. I don't know how to use this very advanced device. But thank you all for being here. This is the coolest facility. So thank you to UCF for hosting us. Mark for, yes, Jason for bringing the tables, and Mark for answering all the million questions I had along the way. So I appreciate it. Thank you to Tech Systems for sponsoring the pizzas, because we can't really have a meetup without food. So the rule we have is you have to eat all the pizzas before we leave. So get ready, it's coming. Oh no. And thank you to Jens and Alistair for being here. This is probably the most epic Agile Orlando event. I don't think we've had two great celebrities like this speaking at one event. So thank you so much for making the time, and for you to drive 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 45 minutes to be here to talk with our community. We really appreciate it. I wanted to wanted to let everybody know, I think most of you know because you're from UCF, but for anyone that's not from here, restrooms are on the left. When you get out the doors, restrooms are on the left-hand side. So if you want to take a break anytime, but maybe only after the first hour because you don't want to miss the presentation.
Like 11:30.
Perfect. I also wanted to, yes, I did want to reintroduce.
Okay, this is a very interesting microphone. Well, I want to say just a couple of things. This is actually my first Agile Orlando event, so thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. Thank you. It's pretty much what we hear everywhere besides a couple companies. Everyone, if they're not already Agile, they're trying to get over there, so we'd love to learn more and more about it. But I also want to just tell you a little bit about Tech Systems if you're not aware, because a lot of people think recruiting, we're just here to grab you, take you somewhere, put you in another job, and that's really what it's not about. We've been in Orlando for about 30 years now. We work with over 100 different companies. I would say the main thing that we do is we talk to people that have jobs, that are happy in their jobs, and just keep them up to date on the changes. I was talking to some people earlier. Technology changes almost every day. There's something new, something up to date, and a lot of times when you're with companies for a long time, you don't hear about all the updates, and you just don't really know what's out there. So a lot of it is just keeping people up to date, and then of course, if anything ever should happen or need something, we're here for you. But we'd love to just be a point of contact for you in Orlando. Definitely going to start trying to come to these more, and there's a lot of other user groups out there too that we're trying to get more involved with. But I have business cards. I should have given them to you earlier as I was talking to you. But if I haven't met you, I'd love to afterwards. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. But my name is Christine Blackburn with Tech Systems. If you look for me on LinkedIn, I'm there. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Oh yes, so important note about lights. If we are all really still, the lights might go off. So just do the wave or dance or jump up or whatever you want to do. So Jens, our first speaker today, I don't know if I can say enough words about you. You're definitely the king of Scrum. The first ever CST and CSP worldwide. CSP or world, CSP worldwide. And also held the first ever public CSM class back in Florida in 2005. So I know you're never here, and it took us like 5 months to schedule this, so we really appreciate your time and for all the millions of emails that you answered and working us in your schedule. And I'll let Ken introduce Alistair.
Okay, so I didn't want to like creep him out when I first talked to him on the phone, but I'm a huge fanboy of Alistair. Like I started in Scrum in 2007. I read his book on use cases, and I wept. It's not funny. I don't know why you guys are laughing. Yeah, so he's one of the original signatories of the Agile Manifesto, and I would love to hear that story sometime, maybe in Buenos Aires in December. We have a thing. So without any ado, we'll have Jens.
Okay, I will start then. And now you have to hold on. I want to.
We're just not smart enough.
Oh, this one works? Yeah. You have to hold it, right? Oh. Hello, hello. Okay. Well, my name is Jens Ostergaard, and well, as they said, I did the first certified Scrum Master class here in Florida in 2005, and that was basically because I have two friends here in Orlando who works with IT, and I said, you gotta see this. This is a great thing, this Scrum thing. And it goes back to that I was actually the first one doing Scrum in Denmark. And that was back in 2001. And basically, what I was going to talk about today is my journey with Scrum. But as I met Alice last week at the Agile Alliance conference, and we talked about this. And I talked about, I started this project with Heart of Scrum. And Alice has this Agile Heart and Heart of Agile, which she's been running for 2 or 3 years now, or something like that. And it's probably a similar reason that we're doing this. And it seems like they're from the original, the people who've been around for a long time doing Agile and Scrum, there's some kind of concept that, some people say Agile is dead. Dave Thomas, who's one of the signatories of the Agile Manifesto, also, he did a speech about Agile is dead. And it's basically, what I think is because there's coming so many people, there's so much business into it now, there's so much money to make. So there comes all these certifications, and they're trying to make it into methodologies, tools, all these things disrupting the very core of Agile and Scrum. And people, when I do classes, people ask me, what tools should I choose? And they talk about how good Jira is. Usually not the development team, it's usually some project manager or something like that. And my question is usually, no, I can't remember. What's the first statement in the Agile Manifesto? I can't remember. Can you remember? Anyway, so we're going to change focus a little bit tonight and talk also about the future of Scrum and Agile. So it's not just my journey. And so we'll talk for about an hour. I'll talk about half an hour, and Alice about half an hour. And then we can do Q&A, and you can ask anything or any problems you have, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. Anybody see who this is? It's me on the right, yeah. A few kilos lighter though. But basically, this is a house I had in the countryside of Sweden, where we had lots of a lot of Agile people get together there in the old days when we were a lot together. So this is actually Jim Coplin here. He's the father of organizational patterns. And this is Alistair, Boris Blogger. I don't know if you heard Jeff Sutherland and me. So we spent a weekend there. And there's many weekends spent in that house. But a year and a half ago, I sold it. And then I bought a house here in Orlando. I thought the weather was better here, which it is. But I actually live in UK currently, so it's kind of this thing. And this traveling life has been going on for 12 years. So I'm going to try now to focus on just Florida and Denmark and not travel so much. Yes, it started in 2001 for me. I was team lead for the database and process department. Database was really my specialty before I threw myself over Scrum. Normalizing the data models, making sure do not duplicate data, how to set up the foreign keys and so forth. I first heard about Scrum then in 2001. I ran the first Scrum project in Denmark. The main thing was to protect the team. That was really, really difficult. It was a big pension company, had loads of money, but just to protect the team. And don't interfere with team. I had users on site, users were sitting with the team. They were not 100% dedicated, they were dedicated, two of them 20%, but then they would do the regular work otherwise. But they didn't know, so that was very good. They could clarify to the team when there were something that needed to be clarified. I still think it's a good idea, even though it's not part of Scrum. The Scrum rules. They were on controlchaos.com, which was Ken Schwaber's website. And not all of them are like today. Only one person maintains and prioritizes the backlog list. Anybody can request a backlog item. Sprint cannot last more than 30 days. Monthly, that was recommended in those days. Also do monthly sprints, that's what we did. Otherwise, this is the same 30-minute meeting. Sprint planning was also a little bit different. Basically, the team wasn't very much involved until you did sprint planning. And it used to be that you would run a sprint, and then you would keep a gap between the sprints, and you spend 2 or 3 days fixing the product backlog, getting it ready for the next sprint. And you might remember there was 2 parts in the sprint planning before. The first part was where the product owner would present the product backlog items to the team and talk about them. And then the second part, the team would then choose how much can they take into the sprint. And I think it was up till maybe 2005 or 6 or something actually was like that. And then Ken and Jeff decided, well, sprints should run back to back. And that's where and then the team got more involved in product backlog refinement. And I think that's a crucial and good development of Scrum. Ken Schwaber's book came out there. We wrote it with Mike Beadle. And reading that really gave me an aha. It was really, this is if you haven't read this book, even though there are some things that are not correct in it anymore, it still goes down to the core of Scrum about the team taking on the responsibility. So I can definitely recommend it. Yeah, I saw a pattern also that we discussed on the Scrum discussion group on the Yahoo at that time. It was really like, because they were presented by what to do in the sprint, on sprint planning the day before the sprint started. The first week was rather chaotic because they weren't clear, there were too many loose ends. And very often in team 2, week 2 or 3, the team was ready to give up and throw in the towel. But anyway, team 4, usually they were satisfied and they would bring in extra activities actually. It became a pattern. And they had confidence and feel good. And I remember the first time, the very first sprint we did like that, I was the Scrum Master. I was very, very nervous about the team. Because I thought, I didn't interfere. I knew I couldn't interfere. And it looked like it was total chaos and nothing was going to get delivered. And I thought if that would happen, Scrum would probably have died in the organization. But then seeing them coming through, taking extra work in, and being so proud of their work, you felt like you liberated the team from the evil of the waterfall. It almost brought tears to my eyes. But it could have gone bad also, and I probably would have been working on databases still. 2003, 2004, I keep being a Scrum Master. I get certified by Ken Schrober in 2003 in Edinburgh. I become the first CSP. They basically filled out an A4 paper about one of the Scrum projects. I became one of the first CST in 2004. Me and Ken co-trained in Copenhagen. That's basically how you became a CST then. You know, you co-trained with Ken, and Ken said you are a CST. And this kept going for some years that he could actually appoint it before it became a process. I bought the domain scrum.dk. You could buy a lot of them then, you know, the Swedish, Norwegian, and they were all free. Went to the XP 2003 in Europe. Hardly anybody knew what Scrum was. Extreme programming was the focus. Same thing in XP 2004. One of my first teams, we had very good conditions, so the team had their own room like this, had a stand-up table like this where the team, you know, could do the daily Scrum and they could talk about things. Lots of whiteboards on the wall. Some other people, here's one person standing from another team. That's how the two teams decided how to coordinate things. They would visit each other at the daily Scrums. And then if they needed to talk to each other, they would do that, but not during the daily Scrum. I did the daily Scrum wrong, as everybody usually does, meaning I would kind of become the center point in the daily Scrum as the Scrum Master, until I learned to back off instead. We did a pamphlet about the principles of Scrum in PFA. At this time, Scrum was a methodology. It was not a framework like it is today. When I became a CST, I got a thick book of papers with, you know, the Scrum methodology from Ken Schrober. And I asked him about, well, how on earth did you get it into a framework? Because I think that makes it really strong, just like the Agile Manifesto is really strong because it's about values. And Ken told me that it was actually people asking me questions. Well, we're not doing TDD. Does that mean we're not doing Scrum? And that thinking gave him into it becoming a framework. So this is how we did sprint backlogs at that time. So you had the product backlog item in bold here, and they will break it down into these tasks in the day 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth up in the sprint. And you would update how many hours were left to finish the task every day. Yeah, that's the class I attended. I think it was the 4th class he did. Can't remember. That's the one. Those of you with Schmidt, you might know him. He's there, of course, Glover or somewhere else. Well, they came from all over Europe here. Because it was first taught in Europe, I think. And here I am by name here. He would basically put all the, on Control Chaos, he would put all the people that were listed as certified here. I guess there's about 250 here, something like that. I think there's about 300,000 now. This is me and Ken co-training in Copenhagen. Yeah, then I ran the first public CSN was actually in Las Vegas with a friend from Los Angeles. My strategy was to co-train. I would co-train maybe the first 40 classes just to learn things. I started working with Jeff Sadland, and we probably did 40 or 50 classes together. It was very much a community then. The CSTs were a community. We kind of had our different parts in the world where we would go and do things. So we were all together as a community fighting the evil waterfall. But as business came in here and you had CSTs who were not self-employed anymore, they were hired by people. So they would be pressured by management and sales department and so on to go into competing with the independents, like trying to go into their markets and so forth. So it became less and less a community and more of a business people where you actually compete against each other. I guess it's a natural development when something becomes bigger and bigger. But it's more fun when you're a community. Yeah, it's me and Boris doing a couple of classes in the Nordic countries there. Yeah, I just took it. This is the first class in Florida ever. So 2 of my friends, 4 people from Texas who flew in from Lockheed Martin, and 1 guy from Fort Lauderdale. Me and Jeff took the first class. That's the picture we saw. 2007 to 10. Well, CSPO has started. Ken Schwober and Mike Cohen host the first CSPO class. They hold it here in Orlando. And I attend that. I was actually against that you would open up for CSPO because there were discussions among the CSTs what to do. And I didn't like that you put it was CSPO because it would take away from the core of Scrum, I thought. And I actually think I'm correct about that. But again, it was the business who demanded it. The market demanded it. Something came about product owner. But then as it expanded more and more things, well, it seems that the focus gets lost more and more. We did a Scrum video in 2008. It was actually #1 on the, if you searched on Scrum on YouTube. And it looks really lame if you look at it today. And we could actually take a quick look at it. You can see what you think.
Introduction to Scrum, a 7-minute training video with details on what you need to start using Scrum today. From today.
So what is Scrum? A pile of rugby players stacked on top of each other, trying to find the ball and figure out what to do with it. B, a framework for working with non-predictable, complex projects. Could be used in a lot of areas, like for instance, surviving a family vacation on this island or making a biker movie. But it's particularly used for developing software. And of course, we're here to get into just that. Somebody has a vision they want to realize. To get to this realization, some things need to be done. The stuff that needs to be done is made into a list, a product backlog. The items on this list are called product backlog items. This list is incomplete due to emergent requirements. The product backlog is prioritized so that we always work on that gives the highest return of investment. This brings us to role number 1 in Scrum, the product owner. The product owner is responsible for the product backlog and the prioritization. In order to prioritize, the product owner needs estimates. The best people to make the estimates are the guys that are going to build the product. This brings us to the second role in Scrum, the Scrum team. This team will build the product and make the estimates. Scrum recommends team sizes of 7 plus 2 people or minus 2 people. The teams are cross-functional with no roles. All members are responsible for all tasks. Realizing we have emerging requirements, we work in iterations. Scrum suggests monthly iterations. In Scrum, an iteration is called a sprint. A typical sprint consists of 1 day sprint planning, 4 weeks of work, and 1 day of sprint review. Now it's time for sprint planning. To know what to do during the sprint, the team breaks down the product backlog items into tasks. The product backlog items tells us what to do, and the task how to do it. The amount of time.
Yeah, it's very. It's funny how things change like that. That was actually the most watched Scrum video on YouTube at that time. But it was when you have classes back then. People didn't know anything about Scrum. They didn't know. You had to tell everything. Well, this is another weekend we did up in that house in Sweden. We actually mapped organizational patterns into a pattern language of Scrum. So basically what it starts with, if you use the patterns from the organization's patterns from Give and Complete, they say it starts with community of trust. There has to be trust. There has to be trust in the development team. There has to be trust in the Scrum team. And what you want to end out in the other end is team pride, that you're proud of the things that you do. And then in between there are a lot of things you can go through, like work queue. That's what we call product backlog. In Formula A plan, we call that sprint backlog. Camp Scrum came up. We did a 5-day CSM class in the house there. People flew in from Europe. They were actually exhausted after those 5 days. We basically talk about Scrum and Agile in 24 hours. Oh, we slept also. 2010 to 2017, Scrum book starts becoming the way to develop software, particularly in the Nordic countries, I would say. And when I compare Denmark and Florida, it seems to me that they're more mature in their Scrum implementations in Denmark. I don't know if you have the same impression, Alistair, but it seems like it fits very well for the Nordic mentality. We're used to listening to each other. But it goes well in many places here also. There's increased awareness from the organizations about having good product owners and having somebody who makes the business decisions and to implement Scrum as clean as possible. Almost everybody's doing Scrum, but we do Scrum, but we don't have definition of done, but we don't have a product owner and so forth. Yeah. Also, more and more organizations are doing Scrum, but you have something called Scrum version 2. This time we're going to follow the book. Not just the IT department doing it. We're going to follow the book and do it as they say. Scrum then now, from methodology to framework. It used to be 3 roles, 3 meetings, 3 artifacts. There was no Scrum team then. Some of you probably remember the pig and chicken story. How nobody was allowed to interfere with the team during the sprint. But nowadays, we want the product owners to help the team as much as possible. They should be available to help the team. We started to get more and more tools. Then Danube came to CollabNet. We got Rally, we got ER, we get Safe. We got all these things that people are trying to see. And then you got managers and you got project managers. When we do Scrum, we only have the 3 roles. They don't know what to do. So they'll try to look, well, let's see if I can find the tool. I'm good at that. And then, something that gets a lot of reports that can filter up. There was a vision. The vision is taken out of the Scrum Guide. There was task. Tasks are taken out of the Scrum Guide. What the Scrum Guide says now is that the team has to make a plan. Doesn't say how you have to do it, but they have to make a plan that they can show to the product owner. How will they do this? Burn down chart is not in the Scrum Guide anymore either. But the Scrum Guide says the team has to have a way of showing progress in the sprint. So it's because it's becoming a framework, so they're actually taking out things. So because if you can do it in other ways, it's still called a sprint backlog. But if you can do it other ways than doing the tasks, it's okay. Yeah, chicken and pigs is no longer there. It used to be a secret handshake if you were a certified Scrum Master. Do you know the secret handshake? Okay, we can show them later. No? You hate it. When I started doing Scrum, when I started Scrum, we used a spreadsheet that became into board. You had Scrum, which I like best. And then with tools, I don't know why so many people do tools. Task was 2 days become 1 day, so now there's no tasks. And there is a tendency that good implementations of Scrum, they break down the product backlog items, usually in form of user stories, down to 1 or 2 days, and then take them in as whole stories. And you don't break them down further. A lot of work working on the product backlog to do that. But it becomes very clear to the team what to do. There'll be less bugs. And you can cut away things. So if you have something that takes 5 days, you break it down into 5 different that takes 1 day. Well, maybe the product only wants 3 of them. And wants something else done in those 2 days. Yeah, no burn down anymore. The three roles, the product owner, Scrum Master, developers, the 3 meetings that was in the beginning, sprint plan, daily Scrum, sprint review. Retrospective was not part of Scrum at the beginning, and you have the 3 artifacts. It's not there anymore. Now in the future, well, the heart of Scrum, I'll talk a little bit about that. I think it will stay as a framework. I think there'll be 1 more meeting added as the Meta Scrum. The Meta Scrum is basically a meeting where the product owner talks to senior management in the organization and tells what is the status of the product. So you could, so this is so senior management is there. Now, who would be the best Scrum Master to have at that meeting? Somebody who can really fix problems. The CEO should be the Scrum Master. The product owner should lead this meeting with senior management. And the CEO being Scrum Master, because the Scrum Master can fix problems. So I think that will come in. We'll see. I think it's going to adapt to motivation theories. And I think Alistair has a lot to contribute there. Patient Keeper, I wish Jeff Sutherland would do a better description of what he did in Patient Keeper. It was so fantastic what he did in the product backlog. It was just filter into the teams in the sprint planning. And they would hardly do any sprint planning because it was so refined. But if one person in the team says, I don't know how to do that, they would break into planning, breaking it down into tasks. Otherwise, it was automatically filtered into the team. I think there's going to be more focus on the organizational change. I think there's going to be more focus on how important co-location is. And we're going to try to get rid of these distributed teams. And when I say co-location, I mean the whole Scrum team, not just the development team. I mean the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the development team. The daily Scrum, I think the 3 questions will disappear. I talked a little bit with Jeff about that, because the 3 questions is really a technique. And if it's going to be a framework, it should just say the team has a meeting of maximum 15 minutes every day where they synchronize their work and what to do the next 24 hours. We will see. Oh, same one again. Oh, it was because I wanted to put it in front of Heart of Agile. Well, so the Heart of Scrum that I'm doing now, it's a new website. Having it developed by M5 Design, if anybody knows those people here in Orlando. It's being developed at the moment. And it's basically because of all these things that you're losing focus of what is the heart of Scrum. So what I did, I wrote my concerns to Jeff, and Jeff agreed with everything I wrote. And I said that, so he provided me with a quote. And before you see what he said, you probably did already. So far I have six quotes here from Basswater, Jeff Sutherland, Hubert Smith, one from myself, from Jeffries, and one from Ken Schwaber. So I'm going to ask you, can anybody guess which one of these quotes is from Jeff Sutherland? Did you read it already? Well, it is, 6? Nope. Second? Yes, it's the second one. And that's you're very fast reader. No, but and why does it say not?
You know you are doing the Heart of Scrum if the team does not have a presentation. Surely it does have a
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah. Very good catch. Yeah, forget the not there. It's because from the beginning it was supposed to be, you know, you're not doing the Heart of Scrum if. And then Ron Jeffries, he told me to tell, you know, put it on the positive side. He said, you know you're doing the Heart of Scrum if. So you feel good that you're doing it. I got to take that away. Sorry?
That's number 6 is the best.
The 6 is best. You know, they are doing the Heart of Scrum if the team is true to themselves, deciding how much items they can pick over the sprint. Well, you get together with Bass. You should get together with Bass. I got to say also, Ken Schwaber's. So Ken Schwaber's is number 3 one. Yeah, you know you're doing the Heart of Scrum if nobody allocates assignments and ensures they are done in time. And this is a pattern I've seen over the years. Jeff is always more focused on the product, and Ken is always more focused on the social interaction between people and the importance of that. And I, you know, in the last mail I wrote to them, I called them the Lennon McCartney of software development. They couldn't have done it without each other. There's no way. And they're so different. I wonder why they don't get into fights, but they don't. So I did the first one, and I thought, I'll do it. Get lots of quotes. I'll start with a small one. And which one would I do? Number 1. You know you're doing the Heart of Scrum, the development team doesn't feel ownership of the daily Scrum. And Ron Jeffries, when I wrote him, he was so happy for Jeffs. So he says, he thinks actually this one, you could actually describe the whole of Scrum from number 2. And he wrote a blog about it. Then it all comes to that the product has to be shippable by the end of the sprint. And if you're not doing that, you're failing your Scrum implementations. And you got to have a plan. You're probably not there, but you got to have a plan. How do we get there? Because it's double work if you go out of it and you go into it again. So you have to have a plan. How do we get to potential shippable by the end of the sprint? But Ron came up with another one. You know you're doing the Heart of Scrum if everyone involved with the project is always confident that they know as much as they need to about what's going on, what's done, and what's coming up. Yeah, I think I will stop there. Are there any questions? Okay. Damn it.
So you were talking about community versus business.
Yes.
So you're talking about community of practitioners or community of subject matter experts. So if you're a subject matter expert and I'm not, and I want to be trained, I want to bathe in the glory of your Scrumness.
Now, I'm talking about the community of Scrum trainers at that time. So when we got to Scrum gatherings, we know there's mostly Scrum trainers there, and there were 10, 15 people. We would all share everything we had. We would all share to get the best out of it, learn from each other. But then started people holding on to information, so not sharing, because it becomes a business. You don't share it now. This is what we're going to profile ourselves on.
But do you think that's because so part of that is they want their piece of the pie, but is the other part where it becomes unmanageable because it's growing? So there's like 10 of you guys hanging out.
Yeah.
It's easier to keep in touch.
Yes.
As soon as there's 60 or 70 or 80 or 100, everybody's going to have their own little cliques.
But we're also all independent from the beginning. And when you're independent, you can decide yourself. But if you're hired by somebody, you have to do what they tell you. And if they tell you to go a place or tell you to say like this, to promote our tool, well, you're likely to do it. Anything else? Okay, I will hand over to Alistair, talk about Heart of Agile. So the microphone thing works, yes or no? You guys, microphone thing works?
Dude, you signed up for my
Good deal.
thing and I didn't show up.
Well, it feels weird. It's like sloshing around on my glasses. Thank you.
So let's see. Mostly I just answer questions. That's my favorite, but we're going to do that. My favorite way of doing a community event, I call it answering questions with stories. So you ask me a question and I must answer by telling a story. That's really interesting. And we'll do that in a little bit. It's too bad Jens left, so he doesn't know my stuff, and he just left. So now, so while he's gone, I'm going to tell you, I teach what I call Scrum on a Post-it note. So all of Scrum can be boiled down to 5 sentences. Darn, he came back, so now he's going to hear. Yeah, as I said, while you're gone, I'm going to tell them Scrum on a Post-it note. And I actually presented this to Ken and Jeff just to check, because I teach it in my classes. And it also gets to the heart of Scrum and the heart of Agile. So if we just talk about heart for a second, there's a number of people doing this. I'm doing this. Andy Hunt is doing this. Jens is doing this. There's a simplification time. So software development was complicated in the 90s, and we wrote this little manifesto thingy and made it really simple. 4 values and a bunch of principles I can't remember, and no specifics, no techniques. It's, you just like focus on the principles, on the values. And then as it scaled up, and there's like 200 Scrum trainers now, and last I heard there were like 500,000 trained certified Scrum Masters. Like that. There's 200,000, 400,000 people, certified Scrum Masters, have been trained by the Scrum Alliance. So you gotta, you have a problem. You have to kind of try to get Scrum trainers to give roughly the same message, right? And how are you going to do this? And so Scrum has become more and more like tightly specced. Does anybody here know the Shuhari progression? So I'm gonna have to give you the quick Shuhari lesson. There's 3, and I added a 4th one. So I'm messing with Japanese cultural history here, which I love. I'm just really taking my life in my hands, and I can't wait till I go to Japan and do that. Actually, I'm gonna see if I can get a gig in Japan this October, November, so I can do this. So this comes from Aikido. It's not got anything to do with Aikido, but the words come from Aikido. Shuhari. Shu, rhymes with shoe, means follow. So if you go to a dojo, when you start there, and I don't do Aikido, so I'll do karate, right? I'll do karate. You can see this is my karate, right? This is my karate, And you go there, and the sensei is doing this, right? So you get in line and you do this. You're not allowed to ask any stupid questions like, well, what if they're taller than you? Or what if they're shorter than you? You're not allowed to do that. You just, whatever the sensei does, you just copy it up, right? That's shu. Shu means follow. The second stage is ha. Ha means break. And so that's when you start breaking the rules. And actually what happens at that point, you start collecting different techniques. And now you learn how to fight taller people and shorter people and weapon this and weapon that. And you collect different techniques. And ri, R-I, means leave. And that's when you leave the dojo. So you're done with the dojo. You've learned whatever there is to learn. But really, it's when you achieve mastery and fluidity. Now, I'm going to break these down a little bit more one more time. So shu, in a general skills acquisition context, means learn one technique. Right? You show up on the job and they say, hi, We need someone to do some A/B split testing, right? First thing you say is, how do I do that? And they tell you how to do it, right? And just like when you first go to a set, you don't ask any questions. You go, you just copy like, okay. And you assume the technique works. I mean, that's the assumption. Are they going to give you a technique that works? So shoe, everybody comes in the doorway, marks shoe. And you go, how do I do that? And they say, well, do it this way. And you learn the technique. Now, the fun thing about shoe is it rhymes with shoes, so we make jokes, about shoes. So I talk about the shoebox. We get trapped in the shoebox. So you learn one shoe level technique, and you master it, and you get comfortable with it. And now that you've got it, you are never, ever going to change. I just do a little thought experiment. I do a little poll in my classes. I'm seeing, many of you have got, tied shoes. There's two ways to tie shoelaces that we learn, basically. And one of them is you do a loop, and you do this thing where you, like, round the tree and down the hole, pull out the other loop, and right this one way. And the other way is you tie a half knot, and then you make two loops, and you tie another half knot, right? So it's like, we can do that. So just for fun, there's not a big audience. How many people here do the round the tree and down the hole thing? Just like a little informal sample. And how many people do the two bunny ears thing? Not too many, but we got enough, right? Now, so be honest and raise your hand if you do the round the tree and down the hole and you've never tried the two bunny ears thing. Anybody? Okay. Now let's flip it around. Any of you who do the two bunny ears and you've never tried the round the hole and down the right? So now we have a culture exchange that's going to happen after class, after this thing, or in your next meetup. I want you guys to go try the other one. Because you see you're trapped in the shoebox, right? So something as simple as that. I learned a way to tie my shoelaces. I'm done. I'm never going to learn another way to tie my shoelaces. Yeah. And I did this. I gave this little example. Oh my gosh! Like in the 2002 XP conference, and one of my kids had 3 kids, and they were there, and I borrowed their shoes. And one of them had Velcro fastener. It was really cool, like beyond shoelaces. And nobody heard. They said it was the best keynote, best talk ever, and nobody had a clue what I said after the shoelaces. But all the questions, when it was question time, were people telling about different ways to tie shoelaces that were better than either of those 2 ways that I just got describing. And you won't believe how many ways there are to tie shoes. So shoe, and the shoebox, right? Shoe means follow, and you learn a technique, and you fall in love with it, you get trapped in the shoebox, you make a nice comfy nest, and you will never leave it. Ha means collect techniques. You step out of the shoebox and you go, okay, now shoelace tying this way, that way. I make bread, I got white bread, now I'm gonna make whole wheat, pumpernickel, flat bread, stuff, right? A/B testing this way, UI, wireframe prototyping, or whatever, right? So every skill domain has got multiple techniques, and the natural skill progression, the shuhari. And the people who get to read, they mix, blend, invent, splice. They don't know what they're doing, they can't describe it. It's a full body experience. They just do it, and they do it differently every time, which drives the shoe people mad. Because the shoe people say, tell me how to do it. Oh, it depends on the circumstances, and you'll feel, just do it, it'll feel good when you get it right. You're like, I know you have it, right? And cooking's great for that. I remember making my first pastry, and pastry is very sensitive to water and touch. And if it said put in 20 drops, I put in 20 drops. And I was in Munich and asked someone to teach me how to make strudel dough. She made a big pile of flour and put in an egg and some water and stirred it up and said, there you go. And I said, but how much water did you add? She had no idea. I'll just put some in, you'll feel it. It'll be good, right? Like, no. If it's 20 drops or 30 drops. And the best story is my wife was really good at baking and all of that sort of stuff. My son would have been about, I can remember, 12 years old at the time, some number like that. So it was some Saturday afternoon, and I'm looking at him, and I go, well, let's make some bread. Because bread's really good for kids, active kids. And so I had him, he's pounding it, and slamming it on the table, and, getting the gluten to come out, and beating it and all this stuff. And my wife's driving across town, and so I call her up, and I say, what temperature should I set the oven to? And she says, it needs more water. You guys get how good that was? Right? She's driving. She could hear the sound of him slamming the bread dough on the counter. And from the sound of the bread dough landing on the counter while driving the car, she said it needs more water. Right? That's re. Yeah. So re people do things different every time. So here's the thing. When we wrote the manifesto, we weren't talking shuhari at the time, but it was re. We knew that. You know, are we going to unpack this enough to be very explicit? The answer, no. So the Agile Manifesto's values and principles is very re kind of way of going. Scrum was originally defined in a re way. I read the first paper that came out in '94. I actually was a reviewer of that paper. And I was like, I don't understand a thing they're talking about, and they don't say anything explicit. Well, there isn't anything to say explicit about Scrum. And so they didn't say anything. The team gets together once a month, decides what to do, and goes and does it. And I was a methodologist at the time, and I go, come on, guys, give me some more, right? There isn't any more. So I was upset, right? So Scrum was defined as re. But when you have now 500,000 people CSMs and you have 200 trainers, right? So it's what bothers people about Scrum is that it's become shoe level. Why? Because people are asking for it because their entry, show me one way. So all these things don't matter. How do you run your daily stand-up? How you do your review doesn't matter. How long you sprint it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter. All this stuff doesn't matter. Those are like local instantiations. And you know, and there's Ken being a good citizen, and someone says, hey Ken, what are we supposed to do in our daily stand-up? Ken's a helpful guy and he writes an answer, but then he publishes in the book and everybody takes it as gospel. And now we have a shoe level sample technique. That's a fine thing. It's a fine one, except it becomes now gospel, it becomes rules. And so you're stuck, right? It's all the shoe level people attached to it. So Scrum was always re. Agile was always re. And so I have the 5-sentence version of Scrum. So I'm not talking about Heart of Agile. I'm talking about more Heart of Scrum. But it'll help you understand the Heart of Agile, which is a further simplification even beyond the 5 sentences of Scrum. So I'll tell you the 5 sentences of Scrum, and they're on my website. Scrum on a Post-it note, I think I call it, or something like that. So here they are, and the first 3 are really the only 3 that I consider that you need, but the last 2 give Scrum a kind of a fingerprint, the Scrum fingerprint. So the first one says, deliver every sprint. There's a little asterisk, and a 6-point font disclaimer down at the bottom. Oh, you could also just demo. So in 2001, nobody talked about delivering every month. Nobody could do that. So it was demo every sprint, demo every sprint. Then 2008, when I watched Ken teach so I could get my CST, he said, deliver every sprint. Well, you can imagine the difference in the amount of feedback you get if you actually deliver, as opposed to you just load it up on your local machine. It's never been tested or anything. You show it to, right? There's so many problems between the two. Of course, he'd been working around the world, so he goes, well, yeah, screw that demo stuff. Deliver, right? But okay, so deliver every sprint. Footnote, demo. So demo or deliver every sprint. That's rule 1, right? Rule 1. Second rule is, in principle, management hired people who could do the job. That's their job, right? The assignment. Cross-functional team of people who've got sufficient skills and abilities to actually do the assignment that's being requested. That's like the right? That's given. So don't stick your fingers in. Let them decide what to do. Give them an assignment. Let them decide. Keep your fingers out. So no micromanagement from upper management. So rule 2 is team decides. That's it. So then we're to deliver every sprint. Rule 2, team decides. Now, after you add rule 2, you can't add any more rules, can you? Team decides. What's left? I got 3 to go, right? So the third one is, this is a complicated business with developing product stuff. So you got to inspect and adapt every day and every sprint. Every day and every sprint. And in the day, you mostly do like, how do we get from here to there? And at the end of the sprint, you go, where are we trying to get to? And like, what working convention should we adjust? And so on like that typically. But that's rule 3. Now, the last 2, you'll see the difference in tone instantly because they're pretty specific and they're very specific to Scrum. The 4th one says, it's a good idea. See the difference already. It's a good idea if somebody has some spare capacity. so they can go and remove impediments and things that are bothering, so that everybody else can go at full speed, right? So if you imagine, I'm a visual thinker, so if you imagine one of these street rollers that flattens the tar on the street, you know, things with the big heavy wheels. Now imagine it's going, and the driver had to, you know, get down, stop it, get down and take the branches out of the road, right? And climb back up and start it up again, and then stop it and climb down and take the twigs out, right? You don't do that. You hire a second person whose job is to remove the twigs and branches from the road so that the big wheelie thing can keep going at whatever the right speed is and not have to stop. So you have all these highly paid specialists doing, you know, database or security or UI or programming or front end or back end or whatever it is they're doing. You don't want to waste all their time going and getting 4 levels of signatures, you know, running around through the organizations for trying to get 4 levels of signatures to get permission to go to a conference or get a new piece of software, right? Right. So you have somebody with spare capacity, and their assignment is to get rid of that stuff. And so that's the Scrum Master. And then the Scrum Master, I think Ken's a kind of a nice curmudgeon-y guy, you know, when he gets the right mood in him. I think he had an argument over dinner one day and went back to his house. Well, I'm gonna fix that, because there was a change in his writing right around 2004 or something. And for the first time ever, I saw the Scrum Master is the keeper of the process. I said, what process? What? Does she have a meeting once a day? What process is this? So now in the Scrum classes, we're obliged to teach that the Scrum Master is the keeper of the process. And the keeper of the process. No process. There's no process. But anyways, that was an add-on. But the heart of the matter is this: that it's a good idea that somebody has some spare capacity, so they can go around and do stuff. So everybody else can go as fast as they can. Now, in some organizations, they rotate it, right? So people take a turn, which is kind of nice, because then they learn not to spit on the Scrum Master, because they know they're going to be next out here. So they learn how to be nice to each other, which is also kind of a good thing. So rotating Scrum Masters, and occasionally people will find that they can just do that enough, evaporate the Scrum Master role, and then, you know, whoever's got a moment of spare capacity goes and does whatever the thing is, right? Those are kind of like advanced bridge. But that's the 4th rule, right? Spare capacity, chief impediment removal. The last one is really bizarre, because it's a proposed solution to 2 common problems that happen to have the same answer. And the problem is this: we have the developers going away, and there's a salesperson who's about to close a deal. You guys all, some of you know this one, and says, would you just like put this feature in real quick? Because I'm trying to close this deal. It's super hot prospect, like really important, right? Oh, he knows this one, right? Right. And so you got this problem of confusion, because you've got 3 or 4 salespeople coming and different business people, and they're all saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, right? So the Scrum guys go, I have a solution to that problem. You make sure there's only one person, only one pair of vocals, or literally a person. It's not an API. It has to be one human being. It's different than XP, which is an API to the business. This is a person who will sort through the prioritization. If you ever have any trouble, you go ask the person, and they've got it, right? But no matter how they get the answer, that's the sorting out mechanism. Now, there's another problem, which is that the dev team, they go around the business and they ask, you know, I don't understand, what's the business policy on this? And they have 2, 3 people, and the people give them different answers. Has the same solution. All business rules are straightened out by one person, so you have no more confusion, right? So it's kind of a nice coincidence that, so this is obviously the product owner, right? So the job of the product owner is to sort out all questions around prioritization, so there's no confusion. Sort out all problems, issues around the business policies and stuff. And we add on top of this, since we're doing frequent delivery, like what constitutes adequately good to deliver, right? But there's no confusion. You don't have 2 people. Yes, it's good enough. No, it's not good enough. Everything sorts to one person. So solution to account. So those are the 5. What I've been teaching for about the last, 5, 6 years. So
Sounds good.
it's pretty good. Now, here's the other thing. You can pass the CSM exam for my 5 sentences. I've tested it out. Give the 5 sentences and say, go pass the test, and you can go pass the test. Because the crucial one is team decides. Whenever in doubt, team decides. Except and only except if there's a question about whether something's ready to deliver, then we've got the product. And there's weird stuff like the Scrum Master has no power, right? They're just remove impediments. So who calls the daily Scrum? Who calls the daily Scrum? And it's on the exam. It's not the Scrum Master. Okay? The Scrum Master's job, this is really interesting because this is like a bank shot and pool, right? Scrum Master's job is to see that it happens, but it's not their job to do it. And in fact, it's a negative on the team if they're doing it, because then the team falls asleep and waits for the Scrum Master to pull them by their ankles, you know, every day to go out there, hey, grumble, grumble, right? And now you've got some you know, kind of bad feeling to it. So that's Scrum on a Post-it note. Scrum on a Post-it note.
I usually say that. I think Scrum is 2 years away.
But this is my 5-sentence version of Scrum.
Very good.
Yeah. So if you want to get the short form of that, demo or deliver every sprint, team decides, someone has spare capacity to clear the way. The third one, inspect and adapt every day, every sprint. Someone has spare capacity to clear the way, and only one person sorts prioritization, business rules, and when it's time to deliver. That's Scrum. You got it. The thing is that this gets me to, so I have re-tattooed here. I got the re-tattoo in 2012, and then a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, I was asked to create, I kept talking about the center of Agile, the essence of Agile. I was just tired of all the complexification. And this guy told me I had to like sort that out and give it a name and a logo and all the rest. And so that's why you've all got those little stickers and stuff. And so I did the word search, and I wanted to stay in the Japanese tradition, and they don't have a fourth. But I came up with a fourth. So I got a re-tattoo here, and I found a fourth, and that's the fourth one. And it's kokoro, and it means heart or essence. So I found the perfect word. And it was used by the Japanese samurai Musashi when he was writing his book, you know, at the age of 60, and he's still got all arms and legs. So he's obviously very good. He's never lost a fight by definition. And he writes his book. And he uses this word a lot, this character a lot. And, you know, the essence of the samurai is to this, you know, the heart of the samurai is to this, the essence of the samurai is that. So that's perfectly what I want, because this means basically radical simplification. And you guys have seen Karate Kid. You guys look old enough, you might have seen the old one. You've seen the old one, not the new one, you know, with what's his name, little kid. But Miyagi, you know, wax on, wax off. What a great meme that is, right? Wax on, wax off. That's kokoro. That's the heart, the essence. So that's radical simplification. So Miyagi is a kokoro level teacher. This is very important. This is not a skills progression. The skills progression ends at re. Re is the top of the performance scale. Up there. What happens is people who've been in the field long enough, and this happens in all fields, and I found this in every field. Usually after about like 15 years or something like that, they go, this is all too complicated. It shouldn't be this complicated. It shouldn't be this complicated. And they go on a quest to find the simple, and you find this in all of the fields. And they do this radical simplification. And their proposal is that as you're learning, so understand this is a teaching learning stance. This is not a performing stance. If you go, I'm so past re, I'm in kokoro. No, that means you're a teacher. You know, usually if you're a teacher, you're not as good as the performer, right? I teach programming, I'm not as good as a good programmer, right? I teach project management, I may not be as good as the best, you know, project manager anymore, but it's the teaching part. And so this is like capture the essence. What's the wax on, wax off of Agile? You know, wax on, wax off. What's these 4 words that I just gave you? So I assert you don't need anything more than these 4 words. Collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve, done. There is no more. I assert that. Or if you only do these, you'll be good. You collaborate in order to deliver. You reflect in order to improve. And I split those because I, in my writing, have reflected improvement. And in Scrum, there's inspect and adapt, and it's too many syllables, and it's 2 things that people don't do them. Especially they don't do the reflect part. So I split them. Just to like make, no, you have to reflect. You have to stop and reflect. Reflect, improve. But the 2 loops, actually, you collaborate, you reflect on your collaboration, you improve your collaboration. You deliver, you reflect on your delivery, and you improve your delivery, and you deliver again, right? Like that. So these little loops that go on in there. And basically that's all there is. And what I'm trying to do with this is just get people to relax a bit. If you did anything that would improve collaboration, you just did something good. You don't have to have, and you're going co-location, right? Which I've been fighting the co-location, you know, argument for 20 years. I don't particularly fight the fight. I see the difference, right? I don't fight the fight. If you do anything that, if you're distributed and you do something to improve collaboration, you'll have done something good. So for instance, if you have a quarterly get together of distributed team members and you go out to the fair and you have a weekend together, that will improve collaboration, even if you're distributed. So that will improve things, right? Anything you do, and everybody knows how to improve collaboration. It's not a mystery. You know if you're doing it or not. I don't have to tell you anything. You know how to improve it. You don't want to do it, but you know. That's different, right? So I don't have to tell you anything. So it's a different doorway in. So nowadays, if I go to an organization and they say, we're going to get started with Agile, I wouldn't start with my stuff, Crystal, or with Scrum, or with XP. I would just say, what can you do to improve collaboration? And delivery, what you want to do is to deliver less, more quickly and more often. And then you learn, because you have to learning. You'll get better revenue and better learning, both. Jeff Patton says, earn or learn. Know what you're doing. You're delivering to learn, or you're delivering to earn. Right? It's kind of nice. Like that. So deliver less, more often. Right? And then you have to learn to reflect, because people don't know how to reflect. Data analytics is a way to reflect. Reflect by looking at the data analytics. There's so much analytics out there, and most people don't use it at all. And you also reflect using your emotional, state. You reflect, and then improve. Lots of little experiments. Lots of little experiments. Experiments are nice because you can back them out, right? Let's try this way of working for a bit. We'll give it a sprint or two, or however long we want to give it, and decide yes or no, right? What's cool about this little structure is it expands. As Jens was saying, I expand it out. I only expand it out because I get bored, right? What am I going to say? The same 4 words over and over again. So I was kind of curious, is there only 4 words, or what happens? Can you expand it out? And it turns out it expands out in really interesting ways. So we get kind of the root-based behavior, the root-based values that we brought into the Agile Manifesto just through the 4 words. Collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve, right? And I also saw on his Scrum in the Future slide, motivation is in there, right? Trust is in there, all of those things. Co-location's about the collaboration aspect of it, right? Very much. Delivery is more complicated. There's the internal and the external aspects of delivery. And the internal aspects is all that Kanban, the Kanban University, work in progress, queue management, visualization of queues, all that stuff, bottleneck stations, all that stuff is in the internal aspects of delivery. It's like running the factory, right? So all of Lean Kanban University fits inside of delivery. But that's all the internal part. I want to be clear, that's the internal part. What we're missing is the external part. And the easy external part is delivery for incremental delivery to get increased return on investment, early cash flow, all of those good things. But for the last 3 years now, 3 going on 4, it's been about that long, the emphasis in the industry is on deliver for learning. I don't care what it costs. You have to deliver because you're wrong and you don't know where. So I got a patent on flip-flops some years ago, and I sent off this guy, went to China to bring me some back. Took him 6 months to go there and come back. He came back, and I said, it just has to be soft material and brown. And he gave me something hard as a cracker and black. I said, I can't do anything with this. So I decided the bottleneck station, right? You have to, if you speak that language, the bottleneck station was the round trip time to China. So the next time I made 4 samples or 5 samples, and I sent with him. And he brought them back, and some were better than others, but that's okay. And I took one to a shop, and I said, I would be interested in having these in the shop. And they said, we can't because it failed in a heartbeat. I said, it's another 6 months before I get another shipment, right? Before I get my next prototype. So the turnaround time. So finally I decided I don't care what it costs. I was trying to get like a sample that I was trying to get them at $5 a piece so I could sell them, at $20 a piece. I don't care. I'll pay $200 for 2 of them because I know the moment I show them to somebody, they'll be wrong and I have to change them. And what I care about is how fast can I change that, right? Show me one, $200, show it, right? $200, show it, $200, show it, whatever. I don't care. I'm only getting 1 or 2. So that's delivery for learning. And think about with your product. What are the odds that everything in the product is correct? Well, 0, right? But you don't know where. You don't know what. So you don't care the cost. You have to put it out there. You have to put it out there. And that's all lean startup, all product management, prototyping, early user viewing, all that stuff is about is trying to figure out where we're not being optimal in a product feature set or the presentation or whatever it is. That's all the delivery. So delivery's got three parts: the internal part with Kanban, incremental deployment staging funding, and deliver for learning. What's cool in the Reflect and Improve, we're bringing in some stuff from psychology. There's a school of psychotherapy called Solutions Focus. Solutions Focus is weird. They never do any root cause analysis of anything. All they do is say, what would a day look like if things were working well in your organization? Like, describe it tangibly. How would people talk to each other, right? What would be the mood? How would you know that something was going well? And that's it. You ask those questions, and then people say that. And then you say, well, see if you can find any of those happening. And then the next 2 weeks later, you go, so like, what did you notice? And what else would you like, right? And so it's a very forward-looking thing, and you ratchet up. But it turns out, psychologically, by noticing, by looking for the things you'd like to find present, you actually find them, and you make them present. It's really weird. But that's new stuff we're bringing in there. And in the collaboration part, I'm bringing in a thing called guest leadership, push versus pull models, cultures, push, not just work, push versus pull, but the cultural equivalent of pull and push and that stuff. So Heart of Agile is kind of cool because at the one time it goes, the old values, right? Collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve. And on the other hand, it's a big enough space that we can pull in really cool new things. And the part I like is if you were to bring that to an organization, nobody's wrong at the get-go, right? Everybody's got an I don't care. Improve delivery in any fashion, it's fine. Improve collaboration, be open. And people are relaxed because now they can do something that they always were doing, right? Or they can try something that's never been written, or they can try something weird that they read in a magazine, or whatever, right? It's all good. Improve any of those and things get better. That's my goal. And now, so you'll see here the link between when he's doing Heart of Scrum, Heart of Agile, Heart of Scrum. They're pretty similar, right? Collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve. That's kind of what you do with a sprint, right? You collaborate, you deliver, you reflect, improve. That's it. So there's a lot of similarity here. So I'm kind of happy to come up here and share some of the stage with the NC invited me. Because we know that there's a large overlap. So I'll go. You want to come here and get a microphone, and we'll just take questions for the next half hour or something. I didn't check this thing. Was this thing still working? You could hear me in the back, right? That's cool. Is there a second one that works? Did you? Can you? Who's our mic person? Yeah, that's a laser pointer.
Hello.
Yeah, that works.
Hey, quiz.
You just have to attach it to your roller up. You just have to attach it to your roller up.
So any questions? Goes.
We have a hand up over here. Sure. So I run the argument a little bit like this. There's theory X and theory Y management. Anybody know about that? In the 1970s, some guy wrote a paper saying it was the arrival of the theory Y instead of theory X. And in theory X, the management assumption was that people are lazy and badly behaved, and you have to whip them to make them do stuff. That was all, industrial revolution, time frames, Taylorism, all of that stuff. And this guy in the 70s, can't remember his name, wrote and said, well, there's a different approach that people are using these days, which is assume people are motivated and good, want to do well, and mostly want to get out of the way so they can do good stuff. So it's called theory Y. And I just use the terms push and pull on these because there's a feeling of pushing right on somebody. So for physical work, when you yell at somebody, like the muscles twitch, and they're shoveling, you're shoveling cold, someone yells at you from behind, you shovel faster. But if you're designing a user interface, and somebody comes up behind you and yells, faster, faster, you don't go faster, right? Your brain freezes, that's the end of the game. So for creative work, the push model, yelling at high pressure and all that stuff gets in the way. So pull, the softness. So push is correct, pull is not quite correct. It's more about creating a space, right? A quietness where people can like not feel under threat, right? And the brain's engaged and so on. So pull's not exactly the correct word, but I like that. So the next part of this little staging is if you look at an organizational hierarchy, the stock market, if it's a public company, they don't care if employees are happy or sad. They just want to know that the prices are going up and dividends are happening. So on top of the CEO is a horrible amount of push, right? The stock market is absolutely brutal and unforgiving. So at the top of the pyramid, we're pretty much guaranteed to have push happening. Down at the bottom, if we're doing creative work, we want this pull or this quiet space. How does that happen? How does that shift happen, right? So somebody in here, necessarily somebody in the organization has to be what I call the push to pull umbrella. And we know some people, managers, we see managers, and the team likes them. The team can't see that. Goes, you hear this all the time. This person, gave us shade, provided, cover, right? Was our heat shield. Those all these words we use for the manager who is able to provide, shift over from the push action to the quiet space that I call pull, but quietness, right? Which is a bit of a problem for them because if they do their job right, nobody can see what they're doing, which is really, really tough for them. But that's what good managers do. And so what I'm a little bit looking at now, what's the language of the pull universe? And it's really, really interesting because I grew up in a push universe, right? I got spanked as a kid, and I was on sports teams, and you're always being, you're being pushed on the whole time. And I had kids, and I had to learn to stop spanking, but I put them in the corner. It's all push discipline. There are people who, and by the way, all that stuff doesn't work. If you have kids, every form of push discipline doesn't work. I've tried them all. Got all the books, and I tried them all. Spanking, stand in the corner, go to your room, empty the dishwasher, do push-ups, whatever it is, it doesn't work. I can just tell you. And so I started watching, typically women, not always, but typically women. Any of you may be this way, and you just create a quiet space for the kids. And for those of us who are push trained, we don't have the vocabulary. We don't know what is it that they do. My wife was very good at this. If you say to a kid, "Don't touch the radio," the kid can't process that without first making a picture of themselves with the finger on the radio. If you say, "Don't touch the radio," you're actually saying, "Touch the radio," because that's the picture that's in their head. And you try to ixnay a picture you just drew. You can't ixnay the picture you just drew. It's there, right? So I was like suffering because the kid would come in and I would say, "Don't touch the glass figurine." Oh, and she would say, "You didn't just tell him to touch the glass figurine." So what she would do is just say, the kid would come in and you'd say, "Hey, look at this," and the kid would look at this. Right? Was never thinking about the radio or the glass figurine in the first place till I mentioned it. But she would just like propose anything else. Right? So you watch the people who can do this, and they're very soft. Typically, you'll find these people very soft managers, very soft scrum masters, very soft coaches, whatever it is they do. And people like being around them because you don't get hurt, right? And so they blossom. People blossom, but you can't yell at a flower to blossom. But you have to water and the light, and then flower blossom. So this is the pull culture, and I'm going down this path because I think it's super important. And I've tried to interview some people who are these pull type leaders. They can't say what they do. There's nothing explicit, right? So as push people are like super frustrating, but that's push pull.
Yeah, and what I want to add here is exactly what Alistair says here about we've been pushed, and from the top of the pyramid. So the managers can get their bonus if the stock prices goes up by the end of the year. So they're forced the project to finish on time just because of that. But what happens to the people and the developers? When you try to force them to finish on a certain time, well, they take shortcuts. How many of you have been programmers? How many of you have? If I put the if statement right here, it will work. It really belongs to the code over here. Then I have to refactor all the code. So I'll make a hack here. I'll even hard code it to make it really quick. How many of you have done that? Well, it should be the same people, yeah. So you're pushed to doing this. So you take this shortcut, and it works. Short term. But long term, you're getting this technical debt. You won't test as much as you should. You won't document as much as you should. So you get this technical debt. It's just going to get worse and worse. But the stock market, as Alistair says, they're very short-sighted. They want to see results now. You got to get this product out so we can make money. So how do you get out of this? Well, you got to get into the pool that the team decides. And what Scrum has here is the definition of done. You got to put in what does it mean when we say done? Well, it means we refactor the code if we didn't. It means that we updated the documents and so forth. So the definition of done is really important, and you don't put it on a piece of paper and hide it on a server. You put it on a piece of paper and you hang it up on the wall. This is how we think. This is our culture. Good Scrum Master asks a sprint review, and if you have a trust, you ask the team, how much technical debt did you deliver this sprint? And if you have a good trust, they will say if they delivered any technical debt.
Now, there's a thing I want to bring up here. I'm glad that he's here. Denmark and Sweden, in particular, are very much in the pull side of the cultures. And I know Sweden outlawed spanking back in the 70s, I think.
Yeah, same in Denmark.
Yeah, and so think about this. And I heard about that. I had some friends who grew up in the time period, and they said in the next generation, they've had like 3 generations of births in that time since then. And in the first generation, the kids were spoiled, right? The parents didn't know what to do, and so the kids are running around doing everything. But by now, it's like three generations later, waves of birth later, it's not a problem, right? You don't have the problem of the spoiled kids. So here in the U.S., spanking's still allowed. There, it's outlawed completely. They can still do send to the room and other things, but the tonality of the interaction between people in Denmark and Sweden is very soft. Nobody's ever been spanked. It changes a lot in the dynamic. So you just talk to each other like people, like all that stuff.
Well, actually, I have a funny example. Cope lives in Denmark now, in Cockburn, and his son there, which is stepfather for with Gertrude, he's an exchange student in America now, and he was talking to his mother on the telephone, and he was on, why doesn't the parents trust the kids?
Yeah.
So it's something about building trust there also, because kids like to sneak. They like to do things that they don't want to tell the parents unless they're trust. If they're going to get hit in the head, they will not tell you.
So that was a good question. We have another question. Hey, do you have one, Ken? Sorry. That's all right. I just wanted to honor the fact that he raised his hand.
So you guys just talked about it a minute ago. It's like, so we have the pyramid, we have the stock market, we have the strings. So the kumbaya, the space, those kinds of things, or the incense burning, the lights are turned down low. Music's playing, that's fine. We still have to meet deadlines and we still have constraints.
Yeah.
So philosophically, how do you mold those two?
No idea. No idea, man. No idea. Okay. I grew up in a push culture. I'd whip them.
Well, I'm having this website developed now by a design company here in Orlando, the Heart of Scrum, which I hope will go live in a month or something like that. But anyway, what I did is I gave them a certain amount of money. Let's do the best possible of this. That's the ideal way to write a contract. But then, most managers will not accept that. Or it could be a law you have to implement. But basically, you have to get the team, the developers and everything together and say, what are we going to do?
Well, I had a VP of something ask me one time, how do I know if the problem really is that difficult or the developer just goofing off? And I said, I don't know. I know to you. I know to anybody that they may know, but nobody else knows, and you can't find out, basically. So it's a conundrum. That's why I'm studying the push-pull thing. It's a conundrum. Trim the tail is your friend. Trim the tail is a thing I haven't talked about, but it's a technique. That he talked about it a little bit, and I heard some other people talk about it. But basically, you try to load up the features, the learning part, the value part, and you leave lots of little driblets unprogrammed, so that when you run out of time, you can actually cut aspects out of a feature. You don't take out a whole feature. You can like shortchange the feature, the UI, whatever you want to do, and you can save some time. And so I use trim the tail all the time. I'm also having a website done, and it's very frustrating how long they take. But the only tool I've got is to take stuff out. If they took this long, they're not going to go faster if I yell at them. I'm not going to design any faster if I yell at them. The only tool I've got is to streamline my requests and use trim the tail to take things out, so I hit my targets.
On your talking about earlier about the sandals. So LinkedIn or Facebook would wait until now. They have all these features that can be done. You still need a sandal that can be prototyped that you can actually hand somebody as opposed to.
Correct.
So that's so you still have.
But if someone's working on products, that's a good example. So if someone's working on sandals for me, and I know what I need to learn about. Like I need to learn the color, or I need to know the material. I can yield on some of the other aspects of creating the prototype for me, as long as I've got the right kind of foam or the right color. That's what I'm testing on at the moment. Or the straps. We haven't got the straps quite right. Yeah, you didn't get the straps done. Give me whatever straps you've got now, because I'm really fussed, like trying to work out the thing about the foam or the color, right? And so what we're doing with my website is they say, we didn't get to this, and this. I go, drop those ones. This is super important. Move that to the top, right? That kind of thing. Cut. I can live with this. You can always live with a lot less than you think you can. That's one of the weird learnings. Let's get another question. Yes, please.
There's been a lot of controversy in the tech community lately about if Agile coaches, Scrum masters can be effective if they've not been developers first. I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Well, I think there's pros and cons. I've seen excellent Scrum masters in both situations. So the con, if you have been a programmer and you know the domain the team is working on, which is really difficult, that is that you don't interfere. Because everybody likes to come up with ideas. Everybody likes to come up with good ideas. We all like that. And if you hear something, you're Scrum Master, you're not part of the team, and you might come up with, maybe you should do this. But your job is really to empower the team to make decisions, so they come up with ideas. And I have an example when I was the early Scrum Master also, because I was a data DBA for many years. And the team, or 3 people in the team, were doing a data model on historical data in the financial system. And you do a historical data financial system, everything has to be correct when you query into the database. And these 3 people discussed for a whole day how to do a data model. And I knew I was not supposed to interfere. But finally, I couldn't stand it any longer. So I said, listen, guys, you only have to do like this and this and this. That'll fix your problems. Luckily, they've been thought well in Scrum, because they just stood up and they looked at me and they said, you're not supposed to interfere. Go buy us a strawberry cake. So I had to go down to the bakery and buy them a strawberry cake. So this is an excellent team who says like that. So,
did they use your idea afterwards?
No. They came up with a better solution the next day. And they have ownership. It's about the team having ownership. Now, the con of not have been a programmer. If you haven't been a programmer, it can be more difficult to clear the way for the team, more difficult to solve problems for them. So it's my.
What kind of a problem would be difficult for a programmer? What kind of a problem would be difficult for a non-programmer to solve?
Some technical issues, that we need a bigger server, or we need somebody with database expertise who knows how to do data modeling. They need something that
I'm going to argue. I'm going to argue for that just for fun.
Okay.
So we need a bigger server. The Scrum Master is not allowed to be an expert on anything. So the Scrum Master is not going to install the server. It's not going to buy the server.
Nope.
So the Scrum Master is going to find somebody who knows about servers.
Yes.
The Scrum Master doesn't have to know anything about servers.
No, but he can talk with the people buying the servers about how it works. So he doesn't have to go back to the team and ask again.
Okay. So the best Scrum Master I ever met was a woman who knew absolutely nothing about programming or nothing. I propose people select Scrum Masters based on their personality. And this woman was like a burr under the saddle. If she ever got anything in her mind, she didn't care who she talked to. She would just go up and stand in front of them and say, "Where's the something?" Right? You're like, I don't know why you think you're going to lunch. Our team's waiting for someone to get, right? Do you need a programming background for that? No. When she was like in there someone's face, she was in someone's face. And she did other things, like she started a newsletter and told teams what the other teams were doing, right? So she did all the stuff. She would have, if say we didn't need another server, she'd go, "Who knows about servers?" Let's say, Bob, Billy, Gene, the boss, something knows about servers. She'd go, "Our team needs help with the server," right? So that was, and so it was her personality that was particularly striking in that particular case. Yeah, that's what I have about that.
I agree. Basically what we want is self-selecting teams. The team selects who's going to be in which team. But we also want the team to select who they want as a Scrum Master. That's usually the best way. And they would choose somebody who will defend them.
I heard, maybe you can back this up or not. Somebody that I was one of my clients went to a course being taught by Jeff Sutherland and Bas Avoda together.
We got one class together, yeah.
In California in 2009.
Yeah.
And the person came back and someone had asked, should the team lead be the Scrum Master? And Jeff said yes, and Bas said no. And they didn't come to an agreement before the end of the class, which is, imagine you go to that class and your shoe level, right? Your shoe level, you ask a very nice shoe level question. It's very simple. Should the team lead be Scrum Master or no? And one teacher says yes, and the other says no. And that's the end of the class. So
but the same thing
does that make sense? I believe Jeff is keen. He likes the team lead, technical lead to be Scrum Master. That's somewhere in the background, right?
Yeah, and I don't know why he does that, because it would be the same thing would happen if Ken and Jeff taught a class together.
Yeah, because Jeff.
I don't think they ever done that.
But Jeff does like that idea, because that was like his experience back in the 90s, and that worked for him there.
Well, Jeff I think Jeff is the thinker behind Scrum.
Right.
But he also talks about velocity and 400% increase in productivity and all those kind of things.
The word hyper
productive, yeah.
Hyper 400
comes buzzwords and so on, and then Nokia test different things. And Ken is completely different, as I said. He talks about these things that we talk about now, who should be the Scrum Master and so on.
I
match each other.
I talk in my class about conflict of authority. So if you start with the fact that the Scrum Master has no authority, now if you watch how are you going to play this? If the team lead, the technical expert is the Scrum Master, they have authority. So you've got a conflict of authority when they speak. Which one's speaking? If it's a project manager who has a particular, end of year appraisal, kind of power over people in the team, when they speak, the presence of authority at one instant interferes with their being Scrum Master without authority in another, right? So I look for conflict of authority. And it was interesting because Ken's got a bee in his bonnet. It's an adversarial view between the business and the IT, which bugs the heck out of me. And so Ken will say, even still, the last time I saw, that the product owner can't be the Scrum Master. And to me, because he sees, and just so you know, this is one of the things that winds me up, the pretense that the product owner is badly behaved. The product owner can't be the Scrum Master because the product owner is trying to squeeze the most work out of the team. I don't know any product owners who are like that. They're at the mercy of the team. They say, what can you do? And the team says, we can do this much. And they wanted him to do more, and then they don't say anything, right? So I don't see, so watch, most of Agile came out of hostile territory, Scrum in particular, XP in particular, and so on. If the product owner is not trying to squeeze the thing out, they don't have, I heard someone else say at the Agile conference, again, conflict of authority, because if the product owner is going to have authority over the people in the team, then how can they be a mild-mannered, right, neutral person? Right? So this conflict of authority is how I address that question.
Well, you're right in the sense that Ken has always been like that because, well, product owners usually they always want more, like you said, you want more also. Well, that's my feeling. They always want more, but some people restrain themselves, like you.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, I'm with you. They always want more. Yeah, of course.
So if they don't restrain themselves, and they pressure the team, who's supposed to protect the team against them?
Right, there you are.
There we are. There you are. Having said that, they've taken it out of the Scrum Guide because they've seen it that it actually works.
I know many.
So it's not in the Scrum Guide anymore. Oh, so you're free to say it.
Oh,
I usually.
What does it say now?
It doesn't say anything. So again, if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, fix it. So you can say it in class and not break the rules.
Yeah, I've been living dangerously these last 7 years.
You won't be kicked out of the Scrum Guide.
What's the next question? Right down here, sir. Yeah.
So, like I said, you listen to this, right? It sounds like almost like a developer's paradise, right? Where everything is implemented nicely, agile, you're left alone, just your team, nobody interrupting you, you develop and make something that you have ownership in, you feel very proud of, and everything like that. From the other side of the building, if you're a part of a business, right? So, like, I'm a salesperson, or I'm running a company, I'm trying to deliver, right? Like, I've heard of the example of website, right? You're like, listen, I'm relying on this website to get different goals accomplished.
Right.
And so, I guess, like you said, like, what things have you guys found successful to mitigate that tension, right? Because if I'm running, I want reports, I want to know if the team be productive.
Right.
If you're missing it down, especially, I guess, like, if you're delivering everything, everything's all good. But it's when you miss, right? You miss on what you said you're going to do. How do I know then that I didn't get taken for a ride? Saying as a manager or as a business owner. So how do you, like, what techniques have been successful in kind of mitigating that conflict?
Do you have anything on that?
Well, I would say, when can you commit to being in Tampa? How long time?
2 hours.
2 hours. Okay. So you ride off and you have to be there in 2 hours. What if there's a traffic accident the night before? But you have to be there. What are you going to do?
You drive at 90 miles an hour on the side road.
It's basically the same. It's not because the team makes an estimate. It's not because they're bad people that they discover there's more work than they thought. And it's so hard to commit to work building IT. So what we say, estimates in the product backlog are estimates, not commitments. Estimates in the sprint backlog is commitments, but not a guarantee.
But you're dodging his question.
Yeah.
No, I got it. I got your back, man. Let me play it. I got your back. I just said he dodged your question, didn't I? You were way too polite to say that.
But you got to work with the team. What can we do? What can we do with it? And it might fail still, just like you might fail to Tampa.
Right. So there's two things. First is the team has to deliver, right? And there's an odd thing. I learned this 1 year. I went to Zurich and interviewed the team that does the Eclipse framework, right? That's what's the guy's name? Somebody help me out. Gang of Four book, Design Patterns book. Who's the first author? Cookie quiz time, people. Super programmer, and his name slips my mind right now. And he's the main architect of Eclipse, the Eclipse framework, you guys use. And so I went to Zurich to interview him. I wanted to find out how these guys work. And I figured, I was going to find, the gods of Agile, like doing this stuff. And one of my first questions was, how long is one of your iterations? And he goes, 6 weeks. I was bug-eyed at him, 6 weeks. And he said, we're good enough to pull that off. Right? Because he had good people. I said, what's your test code coverage? And he goes, I don't know, 30, 40%. We don't worry about that. People who have bugs in there don't get to stay around here for long. Right? So, right? So we're good. And he said, if a bus stops every block, you can get on and off all the time, but actually it takes longer. And if you want to go faster, the bus stops every 6 blocks. So what I learned from that was to the extent you can trust the team, you can let them go longer without showing something, because they're dark, right? While they're coding, everything's dark. You don't know anything. So if I'm going to, and I'll pick a place, not at random. If I'm going to India, where people have the tendency to say everything's fine when everything's not fine, I'm not giving them 6 weeks, because like I'll have a mess after 6 weeks. They're going with 1 week sprints. Like, show me the code every sprint. And depending on what they accomplish, I can learn, you know, how they match to the language. And if it's going real good, then we can go to 2 weeks, and then we can go to 3 weeks and stuff. So in yours, the first thing, that delivery tells you the difference between optimism and reality, right? So the frequency, so check the whatever they do. Then you've got their baseline speed. Then you go in Scrum Master or sponsor exec, and you're sitting with them and you're saying, so what can we do, you know, to help you, whatever. Like you said, you do this, but you did that, right? So what can we do to help that? We need more quiet time. We need more tools. We're missing this expertise. We keep getting pulled off. Whatever that is, you know, maybe the Scrum Master could do it, or maybe the Scrum Master didn't have enough power to do it. So the sponsor can come in and sit with them and say, you know, I got it. This is the speed at which you're going. You know, what can I do? This is push versus pull, right? Instead of saying you have to go faster, you know, what can I do that would, you know, do you need another person? Do you need some more training? Do you need to, right? What can we do about all of that, right? Stuff. So that's the internal part where you're looking for how can you help, and the delivery part gets you the actual velocities, and then you play the trim the tail game and, you know, all those other things. So that's what I got.
I would add also, because it's just like Alistair says, you know, you have to involve the team, because if they're just doing what you're telling them, they don't feel responsible. But if you empower them to make decisions, well, if you can help us fix this and this and this, and we can get help on Oracle databases or something like that, then we can do it. Then we believe in it. But you have to involve them, because if you fight for them, supporting them, they will fight for you also, and you becomes this trust team. The whole Scrum team becomes a team of trust, a team of community.
All right, last question. In the back. Sorry, he was faster.
For projects or product delivery. So if I guess the business owner is giving you funding in one way, how do you control it in that environment? What's the best funding method to collect?
Funding?
Yeah, like how you getting paid to deliver it?
I like direct deposit. No, I'm sorry. I missed the beginning of the question. Could someone say it one more time?
If a client is paying you certain things, if they're used to giving you a lump sum funding for a project or to deliver a product, in that whole process of iteration, product delivery, what's the best method to collect?
Collect?
From the make a pay up.
So are you speaking from the client side, wondering how to fund, or are you speaking from the developer side, wondering how to actually get paid?
Yes, the product. Like how do you do it?
From the development side, how do they actually get paid?
No, business side. Like
business side.
Yeah, what's the best way to get paid?
There's the phrase getting paid. Who's paying?
So you know how you have the website, right?
Yeah. You're talking how to set a contract.
Yeah.
Well,
use best method to use. Like, what's the customer standard?
If you have a fixed amount up front and then you discover more as you're in the middle of development, you don't charge more. How do you adjust?
Yeah, there's lots of. I'm on my second or third website. There's a kind of a difference if you're on the outside of the company hiring the company, or if you're inside the company making something happen inside the company. Right? The conversation. That's why conversation can go in a couple of places. So what he did with this company, he said, I got $5,000. See if you can go live with $5,000, right? Or whatever. And they're not going to go live with $5,000, right? So he knows that. But by putting $5,000 on the table, he says the work they begin, the rate at which they can move, and then he can go like, so if I give you another $5,000, can we actually go live? Is that what you're going to do next, or?
Well, we'll see. no, I can stop. If I think it becomes too expensive, I can stop.
Yeah, but I don't want to.
But I don't want to
like that.
But
That's $5,000.
yeah, no, of course not. But if you're going to fail, you want to fail fast. You don't want to wait till the end of the project. So you want to, it comes back to delivery. What did I get for the money? Do I want to stop or do I want to continue?
Well, on my first, if you look at my website now, anybody here been to my website? It's pretty difficult, huh? I started that in like 1999 or 2000. I said, okay, I need to get some proper website stuff done. I went through like 4 or 5 programmers. They were horrible. I mean, I was a programmer, right? And they were horrible because they wouldn't listen to me. They had all kind of weird ideas. They got all into the technology. They delivered nothing. What they produced was unusable. And I was like, no. So I would like try to do something and go, no, get out of here. And then the next person was like, no. And I'm like, the fourth, I go, why is it so hard to find a programmer? And then finally I found a programmer and we did some stuff together. I found I could work with him. And then in 2007, I had him design the site you've got now. And I said, I need to keep it under like 20,000. I know it's going to cost me 20,000 in any case, but let's, So we had, about this much time and this much work time, and so now I could look at the end of 3 months how my 20,000 was going, and I was the product owner, and we sliced stories, and we put little bits out, at about the right time and thing. But now I was watching it, right, because I had a sense of completion and coverage and all of that stuff at a visceral level, so I could kind of go like, we're running out of the 20,000, but this is thing. Look at trim the tail. You guys do a web search. Trim the tail's your friend, because you trim the set of features to the most important, and you trim every feature, right? You trim features are kind of hairy, fractal things, right? The hairs have got hairs and so on. And the ultimate basic version of the feature is pretty simple, but that's not the one you want. You want the one with the little thingy on the thingy, and when you scroll on an iPhone and it bounces on the bottom, right? That's not necessary, the little bouncy at the bottom. What's the ROI? A little bouncy thing? What was the conversation with Steve Jobs? But I want to spend an extra 2 weeks to make the thing go bouncy at the bottom, right? So trim the tail's your friend, and you trim all the hairs off, and you just make the basic version of the feature. And you take just the basic features, and you can do this a lot farther back than you want. So you're steering, right? So if you have an idea, this is super important. If you are doing fixed time contracts, leave out the fixed price. Anybody in retail has to hit Thanksgiving, Black Friday, right? Midnight, 00. Programmers can't say, and we'll be late by this much time. You cannot be late on Black Friday, right? Guaranteed you have to finish. The only thing you can do is to trim the tail. Like, if you aren't going to quite get done, you cut the features, you thin the features, you scrape hairs off the features, and all that stuff. So when you do the funding question, you can do like me and my colleague, and I said I got about $20,000. I'm doing the same thing and having it done in Argentina. I have contacts down there, they're doing it. And it's time and material, but I said, look, I'll put $10,000 in the pot, right? Actually, I didn't trust them well enough. I didn't know them well enough. I said, I'll put $4,000 in the pot right now. Let's run it out and see how much, see how the conversation is going, see what the progress is like. And they got to the 4,000, and I said, that's cool. I'll keep putting money. Here's another 4,000. I'll keep putting money in the pot. I know that's the speed you got, and that'll work for me. Right now we're getting ready to deploy the next version of myself.
And like you said, trim the tail there. Basically, you break down the feature in very small parts, so you can cut away things. For instance, if you're going to make a login with a password, you make it as simple as possible. It doesn't have to be complicated with a password, so you make it simple. And you get the estimates from the team, and you work with the team.
And I don't have a problem with fixed price, fixed time contracts. I grew up on those things in the 90s. So it's fixed price, you then trim the tail's your friend again, and just do it. Anyway, that's it.
I think a key here thing is that the same thing as both Alistair and Jens emphasizes. You gotta have a shippable increment every sprint. How many of you do that?
Almost nobody.
One person there. Almost.
Yeah.
So you all got work to do.
No, wait. So I want to try one more thing. Any of you guys? I check. I say all this historical stuff, and I got him here been around long enough to check me. You're not gonna do it wrong. Why are sprints 2 weeks long?
Well, Scrum guy says 1 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, but why are they 2 weeks? I'll tell you my answer.
Well, most of them do 2 weeks. So
Why?
I don't know why. Well, you want quicker feedback.
I'll tell you why.
Jeff likes 1 week.
So in the late 90s, early 2000s, Scrum, the sprint was 1 month. You saw it on his chart, right? In the early 2000s, Scrum used 1 month sprints. And extreme programming guys, who are real macho, tough guys, because it's called extreme programming, right? And they can say that and get away with it. They ran 3-week iterations. So they make fun of the Scrum guys because they were like old fuddy-duddies. Taking the money. So the Scrum guys made it 3 weeks, so the XP guys made it 2 weeks, and the Scrum guys made it 2 weeks. Nobody could make it 1 week, so they all stuck at 2 weeks. So you're stuck with 2 weeks because it's a macho game that you got trapped in. And in my advanced class, one of the discussion topics we go was, what's the right sprint length? How would you know if a sprint length was appropriate? So here's one of the aspects is this. And I actually got Kent Beck to agree with me. Kent Beck doesn't like to agree with me. And on the XP list, someone said if the team can't deliver at the end of an iteration, I was proposing 3-week iterations, and this was in 2003-04. People wouldn't talk to me. They wouldn't talk to me. It was verboten to consider the concept of lengthening the iteration of the sprint, because you lose all your macho points, right? And Kent said, he said, much though it pains me, I have to agree with Alistair on this one, right? And then he said, but after you get it working in 3 weeks, then you go back to 2. So the point about the delivery, yeah, good point. But the point, Kent Beck and I both were in agreement, if you can't deliver at the end of your 2 weeks, then go to 3 weeks. That's that level of important to actually finish and make the delivery. And now if you can't deliver after 3 weeks, you got to learn to split your stuff smaller, because then you've got a problem with your slicing. Then after you get everybody delivering at 3 weeks, because you've learned the slicing, you've learned the discussion, you've learned the everything, and you slice it smaller, and then you can go to 2 weeks, right? So the level of delivery is so important. It's even worth lengthening the sprint for, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
How many of you have a plan how to get there?
Yeah. No.
One person. Okay. Well.
Anyway, that's it. We're out of time. The pizza's up there. But no beer. No beer. No beer? What? Yeah.